Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
I'm the Chief Curator for the First Museum, and I'd like to thank you all for coming out this evening. Before I get into my official introductory remarks, we are in a gallery, and I think you'll see that there are stanchions up and a small number of stools, and that's because we need to keep our distance away from the paintings. Sometimes we get very excited and we don't think what we're doing and we back into things. So that's why everything's worked the way it is, and unfortunately there are no more seats. Anyway, this evening's performance, A Homecoming for Native Son, is organized in conjunction with Renditions 3. It presents Terry Adkins' sculpture, Native Son Circus, a celebration of Charlie Bird's photo in the museum's permanent collection. These galleries are filled with Baroque, Renaissance, and Baroque artwork. Atkins was an important artist and musician who worked in a variety of media. His work focuses on pivotal life experiences of individuals that he felt were underrepresented in mainstream history. He often staged performances that he called recitals, which he described as a kind of abstract portraiture and saw as a way of redefining history. Native Son Circus is comprised of 37 symbols that are activated at about 8 to 10 minute intervals, which you will be experiencing throughout this evening. It's on loan to the Brooks from Art Bridges, a foundation that was started by A.L.L. And what the foundation did was buy artwork that they then loaned to museums across the country who would not otherwise have the opportunity to exhibit these kinds of works. This year-long project has placed the sculpture in 3 different gallery settings so that visitors can see how an artwork changes based on where it's situated and what surrounds it. For those of you who had the opportunity to see it, it initially was installed with Ernest Withers' photographs of musicians. The second iteration, it was in a special exhibition gallery with 2 videos by Terry Adkins. And then, of course, we've got this exhibition here. And while it may initially appear a little unusual to have a contemporary sculpture sitting in a gallery with Renaissance and Baroque artwork, there's actually there are many connections. Terry Adkins was raised in the Catholic Church, steeped in the liturgy, the formal symbolism, the rituals, organ music, and organization of the space that suggested to him a performative theater. The gold circular shape of Native Son and of each of the individual symbols is not just a reflection of the halos that you see throughout the gallery, as well as the condo shape of the Madonna and Child of St. John. Even the periodic clashing of the sculpture evokes some of the sounds suggested in the paintings. I think it makes a great soundtrack, for example, to this wonderful Luca Giordano painting, The Massacre of the Children of Niobe. As well as the ritual of Native Son Circle's repeated activation, it's in keeping with the rituals performed throughout this gallery. As part of the loan process, Art Bridges made funds available to organize programming in conjunction with the sculpture. I am deeply grateful to R2. C2H2 has put together this wonderful program for us this evening. The Artivist, as he calls himself, he will be introducing all of the performers for this evening. And I'd like to thank you all for being here, and thank you. And thank you to all of you. So, with that,
Y'all doing all right today? Yeah. Thank y'all for coming out. Y'all making the time for game 3 of the finals tonight. It'll be over. Give yourself a hand, round of applause for coming out. Appreciation Month. And y'all do know that we are in the about 10-year celebration of Memphis, Tennessee, one of the most important music places in the United States. This is probably the most written about music city in the history of American music. There are more songs about Memphis and Memphis-related events and places than any place in America. It is said there are more musicians per capita in Memphis than any place in America. So imagine that, right? So we're here to honor Charlie Yardbird Parker, right? All right. So people don't understand. Miles Davis once said, if you want to explain the history of jazz music, it's 4 words. It's Louis Armstrong and Charlie Parker. And both of these guys have Memphis roots. We're going to talk about that later on. They got Memphis connections. It's unbelievable. Everything runs through Memphis. Without Memphis, there is no modern America. I hope y'all understand that. You understand that the birthplace of the supermarket happened here where? Pickaway, right? September 1916. Holiday Inn. August 1st, 1952. Federal Express. AutoZone. A lot of these places called Memphis their home. But not only that, but cultural commerce. Tennessee Williams had his first play in Memphis back in 1931. Richard Wright, one of the greatest American novelists, grew up a little bit in North Memphis, in Chicago. I can go on and on and on, but that's not the point. The point is that we're all here, and that we should act as amplifiers of this information. Whatever you witness here tonight, take it among your communities, among your circles, and amplify it beyond measure. This is what we're here to do. We're here to spread this music, spread this message, let you know that you are somebody. That everybody's going to have something to contribute to the narrative of our great city, of our country, of the world, of the universe. Okay, so with that said, we're going to start with African libations with Brother A.L.L Agnoto. He's a master Memphite, not Memphian. He's a Memphite musician and a master griot. So we're going to call on the wisdom and the understanding and the support and love of the ancestors to bless this event, to bless everyone here who had, and wish y'all safe travels after this event, and also to hopefully you find something to empower yourself from what you're about to witness today. So, Brother A.L.L, after libations.
First of all, we want to thank the Creator for allowing us to be here. So we pay tribute to the ancestors the ones who came before us. So this also being Black Music Month, we celebrate the artists. All those artists that happen in the city, they be musicians, poets, dancers, singers, those in the arts. Everyone say Ashe? Ashe. Now those who know that word Ashe is the word of power and affirmation. It's an African word. How many people are familiar with affirmation? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, we have a few. Yes, it is. Those who are not, so we take this to the ancestors, those who came before us. One African proverb said, as long as you call a person's name in the spirit, that person is still around. And there are always three people in the village, those of us who we see physically amongst us, those who are yet to be born, and those who have passed away. All three are here with us. So, as we pour libation, we will use earth. In here, they don't want water in here. We normally use water, so just to let you know. We normally do libation with water. Water symbolizes life. But in this gallery, you know, it's a protocol that we have to follow. So just imagine that we're doing water, but earth is important too. Earth is important too. Because you have to grow things from the earth. The originality from the earth. So we have to ask permission to pour libation. Is there anyone here 90 years old or older? Anyone in their 90s? Anyone in their 90s? No. Anyone in their 80s? Anyone in their 70s? Oh, we have a few 70s. Maybe we continue with libation.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. We ask permission. And as there's always duality in the universe, male and female, day and night, black and white, up and down, the sun and the moon. So we ask also, you know, we always respect the elders. Did I say sometimes? What did I say? Always. So I'm from the youngest of 14 in my family. So I have to respect my elders. Whether I agree with them or not, that was not the issue. We had to agree. We had to at least do what they said, or act like it anyway. Act like we were following instructions. So we respect the elders, but we also acknowledge and recognize the young one. Who's the youngest someone in here? Anyone in there? I know we maybe have some 10. Anybody under 10? I don't think I see anybody under 10 years old. 15, 16, 17. May we continue with our day. Thank you very much. So we do this because we know that those of us who know the culture, we know that we have to pass the culture on to the young ones. Some people blame the young people. They're doing this, they're doing that. They have been taught wrong. That's what it is. I tell people about when I went to the gang, what's happening. There's too many people there. There's no murder rate amongst the people. And the term youth violence, like we hear in America, that term does not exist in their language. That terminology does not exist. To remember those ancestors. So we call the names of those who came before us. And as I call the names, we will also pour the dirt. And everyone will say, Ashe. We'll say, word everyone? Ashe. Well, remember, that's a word of power, affirmation, saying if it can be done, it will be done. So I'd like to start off by calling the name who we're here for. The name was Charlie Parker. And we all say, Ashe. Or by the way, let me say, he also had an African name. His name was Saluda Hakim. Let us continue to call the names of those artists who have passed away.
Jimmy Hospital.
Ashe. Ashe.
Nigga Simone.
Ashe.
Memphis Mean.
Ashe.
Lord Anthony.
Ashe. Ashe.
Brooks House.
Ashe.
Alberto Hunter.
Ashe.
Franklin.
Ashe. 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 Maurice White. Ashe.
James Brown.
Ashe. John Coltrane.
Live Hopkins.
Buddy Morris. Phineas Newborn Jr.
Al Jackson.
Ashe.
Bob Marley.
Ashe.
Bill Armstrong.
And as we know, there are so many names we can go on for days and days, actually, but we don't have that kind of time today. We'll push on with the program, but just remember though, this is just an initiation, you may say, a beginning for us to remember those who came before us. So we remember those artists way back in Africa, millions of years ago. We say for them. All of those who died in the middle passage, that we call Ma'ala, the great suffering that continues. We say for them. All those who died on these shores for freedom, we say for them. And also, for those who died by the violence that we perpetrated on each other because we're ignorant of who we are as human beings, we say for them. Ashe, so be it is done. And we brought the earth from Africa to Memphis as a part of our libation today. Ashe.
Thank y'all once again. Give yourselves a round of applause for participating. So we'll get on to the next part of our program. This is all about infotainment and edutainment. Information, education, knowledge is the currency of the universe. Everybody repeat that. Knowledge is the currency of the universe. The most powerful things on this planet are ran on information, not bullets, not guns, not bombs. Information is the key. So with that said, we're going to get on to the next part of our program. We're going to introduce a phenomenal literary genius. In the words of great Duke Ellington, she is truly beyond the category. So let me introduce her properly. Sister, I'm calling sister. She's a sister, but she's a star. Because we are the universe soul people. Say, we are the universe soul. People. That's right. All right. Sister Cherie Renee Thomas is an award-winning fiction writer, poet. They did poet, right? Wordmeister, manifester, and editor. I put that part. Her work is inspired by myth and folklore, natural science, and conjure. Her roots in Memphis and indigenous culture created in the Mississippi Delta. She is the author of Sleeping Under the Tree of Life, that's Aqueduct Press, long listed for the 2016 James Tiptree Jr. Award and honored with a Publishers Weekly Star Review and Shotgun Lullabies. Described as a revelatory work like Gene Toomer's Cane. That's how I praise. Y'all need to check out what Gene Toomer was. That's how I praise. Her work is widely anthologized and her essays have appeared in the New York Times. She's edited the World Fantasy Award-winning speculative fiction volumes Dark Matter and serves as the associate editor of Obsidian Literature and Arts in the African Diaspora. She is a co-editor of Troubled Waters, The Tales of the Deep Blue, and will be a 2019 guest of honor of the World Fantasy Conference in Los Angeles this fall. Her new story collection, 9 Bar Blues, is forthcoming in 2020 from Third Man Books. Now, boys and girls, scholars and laymen, are you ready?
Yes.
Are you ready to receive the blessings of the one and only Sister Cherie Renee Thomas? Are y'all ready?
Yes.
Wait, don't love it. Here she is, Sister Cherie Renee Thomas.
Let me get to the light. Always move to the light. All right. Thank you so much for this beautiful invitation. It's such an honor always to be able to share your love and your art with your community at home. So I'm happy to be here at the Museum. I'm happy to be here with so many wonderful artists and teachers in the audience. His brain was always so they following up their beautiful libation. Going to be upon the Jubilee. After slavery was the Jubilee, the great wandering down the road time, the where I go is my own time. And during the Jubilee, there was plenty of names. People shuffled them like cards and drew new ones out the deck, tried names on their tongues like New Year clothes, whispered and shouted them into the bright, clean air to see how they fit, licked their lips to see how they taste. Names like Mercury, Lincoln, and Josiah, I am Freedman. Names like Hallelujah, Williamson, and Blessed be Jones. And some kept them old slavery time names, but not out of loyalty, no indeed. Not out of remembrance, but out of hope. The old names was a bead and a prayer of the same longing, a map to the future, a map to the past, leading lost ones and loved ones and never forgot ones, sold or stole away ones, back home to them. Have you seen Thistle? Do you know a milkweed? My child, my brother, my husband, my sister, my mother, do you know where they are? And this way, all the names, the new and the old names, were a witness to the beginning of a prayer long lit on the candle's wick, to the changing of hands in this new land they call freedom. The dead, come and play a dozen riffs on the standards, remix new rhythms of the cosmic ages, bring back the dead, make the black dogs howl in harmony. Look in every direction before you play my favorite. You're free to turn, but make sure you do it counterclockwise. Make sure you complete the sacred circle. See that young woman with the symphonic eyes sitting out there? Standing under the willow tree, she will guide you across every threshold. She will place in your hands cool fruits which grow sweeter with every note you play. Make sure you play it true, sir. Make sure you play it strong. Make sure you play till it rings through the whole night long. Play your highest notes, and all the tempos you know. Play your sweetest notes with absolute breath control. When you are ready, when music and courage swell your being, descend and play soulfully in the underground world of the sound. Make a pact with Persephone to release the truest lovers for your truest song. Then ascend Mount Parnassus when the light is brightest. Join the celestial musicians and play a solo for the music's dance of harmony. When Apollo arrives with his lyre and perfect pitch, bow down to his majesty and promise to spread his glory throughout this great big green earth. Homage. I'm going to crisscross the constellations with Sun Ra. I'm going to wail the Buddy Bolden, count every star and sing with Sarah Vaughan, fly straight up to the moon with Ella, and blow the roof off this mother sucker. I'm going to dance, babies. I'm going to dance my feet rebellious drums. I'm going to get those record needles embedded in my vinyl hair. I'm going to walk with that boo-bop, the bop, the bop, the bop, boo-bop, the bop, the bop, the bop, boo-bop, the bop, the bop, the bop, rhythm, and laugh, and a high-pitched saxophone. My soul will be the keeper of every yardbird riff, every Lester lick. My mouth, the master of all the pulse, mysterious songs. I will decode every hidden message in Blake's drums, and let Ray hit bass notes with every drop of marrow in my bones. I will move in triple time with maps, and groove high it is. over Pettiford, shuffle with Dexter's step, then fly home, all the way home with him. The luxury of a man with you, I love it. Infinity is his name. One of the things I did prepare for this, to write these new poems, was to study as much as I could of Terry Adkins' beautiful work. He was a man that's hard to put in one sentence. He played with music. He created sound and instruments, gigantic horns that would fill this room, and then you could play them. He had musicians play those horns he created. He did installations and things that we call group work, all of that in his work. One of his pieces was called Infinity, is his name. When he sings this body, the music skips down the street, a moonlit stone. A silvery wishbone halts in my throat. The sound vibrates and snaps. Afro, Euro, Indo-Asian songs press beneath my tongue. Indigenous rhythms press between my teeth. When he sings this body, every cell in my blood becomes a song. When he sings this body, I'm a darkling whole note. My voice shimmering up from an Atlantic pole. No dirty songs, no river blues, no Negro spirituals promising new life after. In his arms, I am reborn. When he sings this body, my soul rings out until I'm a sunlit sail whipped in salted wind, until my chorus swells like a lynched tongue, until the nocturnes boiling beneath the roof of my mouth extinguish each burning red cross. I sing this life in testimony to time stolen, body by body by body by body by body by body, from one passage to another. I sing to the opus of loss. I sing this story staccato, a fugue of blackface and blued-up arias. I sing with one hand smoldering in the steely cannon, the other slow, laborious. I linger in his infinite fields, taste his sweet name, the bitterness of strange fruit. Terry has a piece called Shenandoah. And I looked at it and I thought about it and I wondered what was on his mind. And I had so many thoughts. I thought, of course, about the Civil War, but I also thought about the original indigenous name and its meaning. And this poem came out of that. Shenandoah. After so many nights sleeping with my sword across my knees, dreaming of thunder as wild cymbals ring through the charcoal air, I thought you would have heeded the word. We who have waded in the blood of our enemies, we who walk waist high through the songs of two-faced gods, those who sing of no rest, no peace, but warn against our vice. Here in this field, under the beautiful daughter of the stars, only hungry souls obey the law of hunger. But we are more than our bellies, more than our vice, brethren, more than our vice, sister. We are more than the urge to savor the sizzle of burned meat, to pocket it like so many souvenirs beneath smooth, cut, unassembled rope. More than the moan of a man under the sheets, covered by hunger, covered by fire, covered by night. Here on this battlefield, the wisdom of elders is known only by survivors. The wisdom of outlaws is known and felt by all. On the eve of yet another destruction, on the promise that forestalls the dark bloom of sacrifice, we gather together, lie side by side, and wait in the slaughtered light of our spirits. Last poem, Conjurer. She laughs with the birds before she talks with me. Long-legged, sitting in the small dust of stars. I have traveled all the way out in these dark, tumbled-up black forest woods just to catch a glimpse of her golden garden. I'm told she plants the wildest of seeds. They take root in your heart and the back door of both your minds, planting tall starch strong enough to carry you home. But But I don't want none of that love magic. Save that potion number 9 for another mark. I just want sweet erasure. A drop of forgetfulness will do. Take the memory of this man from my heart. Take the memory of this woman from the seat of my soul. Let them leave from the depths of my bones. Let them leave from the wheels of my fingerprints. Let them leave, country woman, let them leave. Let them all be gone. Thank you.
Sister back, thank you for that. Sister, give another round of applause, please. Okay, and we're moving on. This is going to be a very interesting part of the show. I call this part the Battle of the Sexes. Y'all get that? Not the sexes, no, none of that. It's not me too, it's Sax 2. S-A-X 2. T-O-O, okay. Well, anyway, the Battle of the Sexes, this is what I thought about because y'all, if y'all are familiar or not even familiar with the story of Charlie Parker, there was this event that allegedly happened back in 1937 at the Reno Club in Kansas City. Kansas City was Missouri. Kansas City, Missouri. Not Missouri. Trauma, never mind. Kansas City at that time, back in the Great Depression Roaring 20s, it was considered the Paris of the Plains. 24-hour booze, nightclubs, this is during the height of Prohibition, right? Some of the greatest jazz musicians come out of Kansas City, or they go through Kansas City, kind of like Memphis. You got Count Basie from Red Bank, New Jersey, Benny Moulton, the king of Kansas City swing, Ben Webster, and of course, Charlie Yardbird Parker. It was an event that happened back in 1937 at the Reno Club. It was amateur night. Charlie Parker was 16 years old, went on stage. The house band drummer was none other than the great Joe Jones, the drummer for Count Basie Band, one of the greatest bands that ever walked this earth, that ever played the notes, right? So Charlie Parker got up there, tried to play. He was doing okay, and then he started stumbling over some chord changes. That's right. That was Joe Jones and Terry Adkins right there. But what Joe Jones did, he threw the cymbal at Charlie Parker's feet and said, "Get them out the stage." And everybody knelt at Charlie Parker. But Charlie Parker that night made a vow that he would be back. He came back with vengeance. Charlie Parker used 4 years of his life to practice on his saxophone for 11 to 15 hours a day. He practiced his saxophone for 11 to 15 hours a day for 4 years. That's who Bird was. So that's why he was so great. And speaking of excellent saxmen, not sexmen, saxmen. I don't know about the other stuff. I'm talking about saxes, right? Not sex. Okay. We're going to get on with the balance of because this is the thing about Kansas City, right? The Reno Club, some of the greatest saxophone players of that area used to come to Kansas City and have cutting contests at the Reno Club. You got people like Don Byers, like Ben Webster, Lester Young, Coleman Hawkins, Charlie Parker. Some of the greatest titans of all the country will come there to have cutting contests. So right now, I don't know if y'all realize that we got two of the greatest Memphis saxophone players in the room right now. Y'all are blessed to have two of the greatest living saxophone players from the Memphis continuum. That's Brother A.L.L, and also, I want to introduce y'all the one and only Dr. Alvin McKinney, who is the Prime Minister of Joyful Jazz. Okay. Ladies and and gentlemen, I am pleased to introduce gospel jazz saxophonist Dr. Alvin McKinney, known around the world as the Prime Minister of Joyful Jazz, man. I put the man on the end. Okay. Dr. McKinney is the co-pastor and minister of music for Redeemer Church of Christ, Power of God Ministries, and the CEO of Prophetic Management and Entertainment. He hosted the Joyful Jazz Show at RMC Studios and Joyful Jazz Ministries on Cross TV Network. He is also an artist clinician for Julius Kelworth Saxophones, the Buffett Group USA, or I guess the Buffet Group. So Dr. McKinney taught music for 15 years and has performed with such noble greats, wow, as B.B. King, Louis Belson, Clark Terry, Billy Preston, Kurt Whalum, another Memphis great, Rufus and Carla Thomas, more Memphis great, William Bell, okay, Stacks, David Longoria, Daniel De Laurentiis, Ellis Hall, Ruby Wilson, Joyce Cobb, Earl and Paul McKinney. They are powerful music dynasty, the McKinneys. Also, the praise and worship teams for Being In Ministries, Morris Cerullo, Worldwide Evangelism, and at the White House in Washington, D.C. for President Barack Hussein Obama. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to the Prime Minister of Joyful Jazz, Dr. Alvin McKinney.
In the light. God bless you and thank you all for coming. Also, a special thank you to our wonderful host, from love, Miss Marina. Yeah! Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here today to pay tribute to Charlie Yardberg Parker, but also recognize Terry Adkins as well. Not much to say because he's pretty much said it all, but I'll just say this. Charlie Parker was one of the most influential musicians of all time, for all music. Because jazz also influenced other musics around the world, amen? So I wore this suit trying to emulate the what they call it back in the day? The Zoot suit. I got as close as I could. But having said that, I'm going to play Donna Lee, and we're going to trade forward, or trade licks for a little while. And but we're going to do a salsa style, is that all right? So now feel free to dance, you just never know, this might join you sometime. We'll see what happens, is that all right?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you.
So most people normally play alto saxophone, but you did play tenor.
That's right.
Sometimes, so that's why I brought this tenor saxophone today.
Giving them another round of applause for Brother Ekpe Abiocho and Dr. Alvin McKinney. Yeah. So you got, hey, that was all about. It's not necessarily about who's better than the others, about encouraging people to be the best version of themselves. That's what a loving community is. That was all about back in the 30s and 40s. You got to think about it, that you had Jim Crow you got to deal with as a black person. A lot of these musicians could not stay in hotels where they played at. Venues would not let them go through the front door. They had to sometimes sleep in their cars or buses. You had a thing called the Green Book, not that movie that came out last year, but the real Green Book. Y'all need to do some research on that. Take a look. It's all online. But with those guys, they deal with a lot of things that people don't really appreciate. But they were all about encouraging each other to be the best version of themselves. So they would have jam sessions overnight at places like the Reno Club. And also you move into New York City, Minton's Playhouse, the club known as Minton's, which is the birthplace of modern jazz, of modern American music, bebop, which was led by Charlie Parker and Thelonious Monk and Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Christian and Kenny Clark and so many other talented brothers. And sister. It was a sister named Mary Lou Williams who was considered the mother, the godmother of bebop. It basically, like, she used to have these guys over in her apartment up in New York, like Dizzy. Even Thelonious Monk went on tour with her when she was doing the gospel circuit. But she was a piano prodigy. And she was married to a guy named John Williams, who was a saxophonist. And back in the 1920s, they lived in a place called Memphis. So you got the mother of modern jazz. She lived in Memphis back in the 20s. And this is what I'm going to bring the story to. Because we're in the Gemini time right now, right? It's Gemini season, right? I want to talk about two Geminis in particular, Memphis music legends that don't get their due a lot of times. One is Jimmy Lunsford, whose birthday is tomorrow, June the 6th. June 6, 1902, he was born in Fulton, Mississippi, but he was reared up in Denver, Colorado, in the high air. High times, man. Them high seas, 420. He was up in Colorado. He was a music prodigy, right? His teacher was the music superintendent of the schools, this guy named Wilberforce Whiteman, who was actually a white man. But he taught Jimmy Lunsford, who was a music prodigy, some of his instruments, but also he was also the father of Paul Whiteman, who was a big-time band leader, a jazz swing leader back in the 20s and 30s. He actually commissioned George Gershwin to do Rhapsody in Blue. So he also, this guy Wilberforce Whiteman, taught Andy Kirk, another phenomenal swing band leader of the 30s and 40s. Him and Jimmy Lunsford came up through the same system in Denver, Colorado. Now, what's interesting about Jimmy Lunsford, just like Terry Adkins, they both went to Fisk University. Jimmy came, he was, born in the South in Mississippi, but he was raised in Denver, Colorado. So he came back down south to get his education. Terry Adkins, D.C. area, came to Fisk as well. And also another cat that I want to mention, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. Y'all know y'all familiar with him? He was from Great Barrington, Massachusetts. Came down to Fisk University, was the first black person to get a PhD from Harvard University, old Cambridge. He got it, but he went to Fisk first. So it's interesting, these guys, they grew up in the north or northern places. I mean, Washington, D.C. is still the South. You know what I'm saying? It's upper, it's blue blood South, okay? But they came back to their roots, right? To discover their identity, to root themselves in their culture. So that's what Jimmy Lunsford did. He went to Manassas in the 20s. He fell in love with Dr. Du Bois' daughter, Yolanda Du Bois. She went to Fisk back in the day. But he did not approve, even though Lunsford was a Fisk man like him, he didn't like the fact he was a secular musician. Like he was playing all that jazz stuff. Like jazz was like what rap is today. It was frowned upon by the polite black society. But what's interesting was Dr. Du Bois arranged a marriage with County Cullen for his daughter. County Cullen was the poet laureate of the Harlem Renaissance. But the thing about it is, he was more in love with his best man than his woman. His best man was Harold Jackman. He was known as the finest man in Harlem. Look him up. And look up his images. Look at his images. Go image search and see if you agree or don't agree that he was indeed the finest man in Harlem. So much so that he ran away with Jackman to Europe and he left his wife. So she got that. But that was the love of Jimmy's life. He never stopped loving that woman. Yolanda Du Bois. She ended up dying in the early 60s. She became an English teacher up in Baltimore. I think she died in 61. But she had a daughter by a second marriage, but he always had a thing for her. But he ended up marrying. He came to Memphis, right? He went to Columbia College up in New York City to get his teacher certification. Came to Memphis to Manassas High School in the North. Manassas was the first fully accredited black high school in Shelby County. It went from all the way to 9th to 12th grades as part of the the Rosenwald Foundation. Look up the Rosenwald Foundation. You know, it's one of those schools, fully accredited. You know, Booker T. Washington was known that Quartet was the first black high school in the city, but it didn't go all the way to the, you know, it didn't go from 9th to 12th. So Jimmy Lunsford was hired not to be a music teacher, but to be the football, baseball coach, anything but that. English, Spanish, history teacher, all that stuff but music. But he thought that music could be used as a tool to empower and to inspire the young boys and girls of Manassas High School, and also to build community pride and empowerment. So what he did, he got the consent of the principal, and he raised money in the community to buy instruments and to provide lessons for the students that wanted to learn how to play music. And also what's interesting with Jimmy Lunsford, he is credited with being the first person to teach jazz studies in a formal educational setting in any place in the world. So this dude was doing volunteer work. It's like a Disney movie, like kind of remember the Titans or something. Maybe Denzel Washington played Jimmy Lunsford back in this prime. But he used that as a way, like I said, jazz was the hip hop of the 20s, right? It was a popular music of America. So, you know, he'll play things by, you know, Louis Armstrong, the Hot Stars. Okay, you want me to play? Play like records from Louis Armstrong, Jelly Roll Morton, and break it down to the students on an old Victrola. So that was like revolutionary. Nobody was doing that but him back in this time. And also he was in Memphis during the time of Mary Lou Williams. So they used to be card playing buddies. Sometimes he'll play in her band when her husband was out of town, who was a saxophonist. About 1930, Jimmy leaves Memphis, and 4 years later, he is the house band for the Cotton Club, his orchestra. They take the place of Cab Calloway and Duke Ellington, right? He then becomes so popular that they broadcast live on the radio from the Cotton Club that he becomes known as the Harlem Express. He's the #1 band of choice for African Americans in the whole country. He's bigger than Duke Ellington and Count Basie, Cab Calloway, all those guys. He's the #1 attraction at the Apollo Theater for a whole decade. Think about the legendary Apollo Theater. He's the #1 attraction they want to see. Sometimes at these dances, there'll be up to 40 to 50,000 people dancing. You know, so he was playing at those live venues. But also he was on the Chitlin circuit. He played the black clubs and stuff throughout the South. So that also aided his popularity. And what I love about Jimmy, he also integrated the Paramount Theater. That's the same theater where Frank Sinatra made his debut. So, you know, he integrated that. They played for several weeks at the Paramount Theater of New York City. What I love about Jimmy Lunsford is that he always gave back. You know, people talk about this Nipsey Hussle guy, and people say, man, he gave back to the community. Every time Jimmy Lunsford would come to Memphis, when he became big, he would always go back to Manassas High School. He would sell out church auditorium, but go back to Manassas High School to provide free musician clinics and stuff for the students and free concerts. One of his fans and admirers was a guy named Mr. Emerson Abel Jr., became one of the best Memphis music educators this city ever seen. Give him a clap. Give him Mr. Emerson Abel Jr. I used to spend time with Mr. Abel Jr., and he used to tell me about how he was so in love with the Jimmy Lunsford Orchestra, how he loved the Reed Man, and how it inspired him to become not only a musician, but also a music educator. This is a guy who had Isaac Hayes in his high school band to keep them out the high school band, and ended up working for Isaac Hayes at Stax Music with the Isaac Hayes movement. He was a part of Watch Stax, all this stuff. He did a lot of things. Great arranger, composer. He was a Renaissance man. Great calligrapher. This beautiful handwriting. Actual good visual artist, but also he co-founded the Southern Heritage Classic in his living room. He created the first logo for the Southern Heritage Classic, and he co-founded it in his living room because he had the networks with the college band directors, because he was a college band director at one time, and he was a high school band director for a number of years, so he had an extensive network. So that's how the Southern Heritage Classic came about. A guy who was inspired by Jimmy Lunsford when he was a teen to become not only a great musician, but also a humanitarian. So, Mr. Emerson Abel Jr., he's somewhere around here. You know, he's not in the flesh. He passed away back in 2015, but he is somewhere blessing us with his presence and approval of this event. So, with that said, Jimmy Lunsford was also interesting because he was an aviation pioneer. He owned and flew his own airplanes. He took flying lessons back in 1939, bought his first airplane in 1940 for $20,000 during the Great Depression. This is a black man. This during the Great Depression. He bought an airplane for $20,000. Even crashed the airplane and walked away from it, right? But like what I was saying about Nipsey Hussle, he'll constantly start music education programs throughout the country to empower young black boys and girls to keep them out of trouble. He was doing it with his own money. And by the time he died, he was looking for real estate to start a retirement community for black musicians. So this guy was thinking about this back in the 40s. And also his wife, he didn't marry his love of his life, but he married a pretty good looking sister named Crystal Tully Lunsford, who was an English teacher at Booker T. Washington High School. She also owned and flew planes as well. So, let me speed it up. Okay, July 12th, 1947, Jimmy Lunsford was supposed to be doing a concert in Seaside, Oregon, and he went to the number 10 restaurant in Seaside. People don't know about Oregon. Oregon is the only state in the Union that had in its constitution that black folks cannot live, work, or own property in the state. Black folks didn't start coming to Oregon until close to World War II. So Oregon was really like what y'all think Mississippi is. That's Oregon. So Jimmy, allegedly, legend has it, that Jimmy went to the number 10 restaurant in Seaside. He wanted hamburgers for his men. The waitress refused to serve them, allegedly because they were black. He got upset about it. They spoke with the manager. They didn't have hamburgers. They had beef sandwiches. This is before Arby's. Arby's won't be, discovered or invented in 1964. So they didn't have the right meats, or they didn't have the meats. They had some beef sandwiches. So they ate the beef sandwiches, and right before the concert, Jimmy was signing autographs at a music store, and he dropped dead, alleged of a heart attack. Now, some people believe he was poisoned. Who knows? But he was only 45 years old. He had 2 funerals, one up in New York City where all the great entertainers of the day like Bill Bojangles Robinson and Pearl Bailey, Sammy Davis Jr. all came out. He had one in Memphis where about thousands of his fans, black and white, came out to pay their respects on Crump Street. And he's buried in Elmwood Cemetery. So this guy started a phenomenal jazz tradition. A lot of the band leaders of the early black schools in Memphis were members of his band at Manassas back in the 20s. The people that end up teaching some of the music greats that we come to know and love. So he plays an important part in the history of the city on that part. And so what we're doing now, tomorrow you can join us at Elmwood Cemetery from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. We're going to do a wreath-laying ceremony in honor of Jimmy Lunsford. So you'll be surprised, all the people who might come out. You can have words of expression. You play your instrument or be yourself. But we just want to pay our respects to this guy because he did so much for our music. We're renowned as a music powerhouse because of people like Jimmy Lunsford, giving the best of themselves, investing in other people. So that's Jimmy Lunsford. That's a short story. And I know. Okay. Also, another Gemini, Johnny Ace, the late great Johnny Ace, known as John Marshall Alexander Jr. He was Booker T. Washington. He went there, he was raised in South Memphis, dropped out of Booker T. Washington, joined the Navy, dropped out the Navy, then joined the Bill Streeters. I don't know if y'all know who the Bill Streeters are. Bill Streeters, I had a chance to talk to Bobby Blue Bland before he passed. I said, Bill Streeters like the Wu-Tang Clan of blues and R&B. He looked at me crazy. I said, the Wu-Tang Clan like the Bill Streeters of hip-hop. He said, that's right. The Bill Streeters basically was Johnny Ace, Bobby Blue Bland, Junior Parker, Roscoe Gordon, Earl Forrest, and B.B. King. So you had all them guys in one group. But Johnny Ace was the breakout star. He made it big before all of them. And what happened was Johnny Ace did an audition for Duke Records, which was started by a white man named Dave Mattis, a sound engineer at WDIA. Another thing, Memphis invented black radio. Black radio was invented in Memphis back in 1948 at WDIA. So I'm just saying, Memphis invented all this stuff. This is the face of modern America. We just don't know it. So he did audition because Bobby Blue Bland couldn't read. He was functionally illiterate. He could not read music, could not read anything. So Johnny Ace read the music, Pledge My Love, became a star. He was the #1 black male singer in the country for 2 years back in the early 50s, right? In order to get him as your headliner, you had to book either Bobby Blue Bland, B.B. King, or Little Richard. Woo! Little Richard as the opening act. You know how bad it is? This guy, all them guys are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Blues Hall of Fame, and Johnny Ace ain't nobody's Hall of Fame. That's how crazy it is. So 2 years, this is what happened. Christmas night, and know what I think about Johnny Ace? He like the reverse side of Elvis. You know where Elvis was a white dude that sounded black that grew up in the projects, right? Johnny Ace was a black dude that sounded white that grew up in a house in South Memphis that still standing in Soulsville. I think on 899 Ferry Court or Fisher Court Street, something like that. It's still standing. So, Christmas night, 1954, down in Houston, Texas, in the City Auditorium, Johnny Ace had a thing for playing with his guns. He liked to play with his guns, point them at people, pull the trigger. The chamber would normally be empty. Sometimes when they on the road, he would shoot at signs. I don't understand, like, these cats would do one-nighters, right? Between one-nighters, they had to drive sometimes 400, 800 miles. They were driving 400, 800 miles between one-nighters. So by 25 years old, he's burnt out, right? He's tired, you know what I'm saying? He rolled and he asked him for where his money at. You know, Don Roby owned Duke Records at this time. Don Roby was a cross between, was a mixture between Berry Gordy, Russell Simmons, and Suge Knight. Look up Don Roby, he's an interesting character. So on Christmas night, Johnny Ace was pointing his gun around at people, pulling the trigger, backstage, had his girlfriend on his lap, Olivia Gibbs. He was married, though, to his high school sweetheart with 2 little ones at home. He had his girlfriend on his lap, right? And somebody told him, why don't you pull the gun yourself, Johnny? He said, okay, I'm going to take this gun and point it in my head and see. And the gun went off. You know, some people say he had processed hair, right? So he said when the shot went off into his head, his hair stood on end, supposedly. So they had his funeral January 2nd, 1955 at Claiborne Temple. Yeah, the Claiborne Temple, y'all know by the FedEx Forum. They had his funeral there. B.B. King and some of the Bill Streeters were some of his pallbearers. Ernest Withers, the famous or infamous, whatever you want to call it, photographer, did the PR for it, the publicity. So he's buried, you know, January 2nd, 1955. 1,000 people paid their respect. This is the thing about Johnny H. He did a song called Pledging My Love that was his biggest hit, but it came out after he was dead. Pledge My Love is unique because, are y'all seen the movie Cadillac Records? Y'all know about, or even the 5 Heartbeats, how sometimes they'll put white folks on black folks' album covers, or they'll try to get an artist like Pat Boone to do a Little Richer song. People try to do covers of his Pledge My Love. His was still #1. So this opened the ways for people like Ray Charles and Sam Cooke and Jackie Wilson and Motown to come through. But he's dead at 25. His biggest success, he can't enjoy it. As a matter of fact, Pledge My Love was the last song that Elvis recorded before he died. And Pledge My Love was played in Stephen King's car movie Christie and Harvey Keitel's version of Bad Lieutenant. So even Paul Simon wrote a song called The Late Great Johnny Ace. But why is this man not in anybody's Hall of Fame? He's this influential. So on June 9th, give honor to Johnny Ace, the late great Johnny Ace, John Marshall Alexander Jr. And let's see. I just want to tell you one more thing. I'll let y'all go. Or y'all gonna ask us questions. Because this is so important. I know this stuff. You know, dead people talk to me. They really do talk to me. And I'm not talking about in a spooky way. So when I play an album at night, at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I can hear things that are not playing. I call them ghost notes. I hear things that were not recorded. You know, I'm hearing things. So my thing is this. I told you earlier that, you know, 4 words that sum up the history of jazz is Louis Armstrong and Charlie Parker. Louis Armstrong's second wife was from Memphis. Her name is Lil Hardin Armstrong. And she was the architect of his career. She was born here February 3rd, 1898, near Bill Street. Her family was, they woke y'all up. Thank you, Terry Adkins. I'm going to speed it up. Okay, so Lil was the pianist for King Oliver. That was Louis Armstrong's mentor. King Oliver was the guy who called Louis from New Orleans to come to Chicago. Lil was on the piano, very sophisticated woman, studied at Fisk University, was taught by Julia Hooks, I believe, piano. So anyway, she remembered King Oliver telling her one time, because when she saw Louis, he said, oh, well, I'm bringing up little Louis up to Chicago. And then she saw, ain't nothing little about him but his clothes. You know what she said? Something like that. He was like a country bunk. He had bangs and everything. He was just country. He was like, you know, just good old country boy. But she started hearing him play. And she became fascinated because her favorite trumpet player was a guy named Freddie Kepler from New Orleans. Freddie Kepler was a phenomenal trumpet player. But King Albert told her one day, that boy Louis would never be great because he don't have confidence in himself. He's better than me, but he don't know it. He don't have no confidence. And Lil started saying, well, let me think. I can upgrade him. So that's what she did. She gave King Oliver his walk-in papers, gave him a new wardrobe, changed his hairstyle, sent him up to New York to play for Fletcher Henderson, the greatest jazz band at that time. And guess who was the top trumpet player up in New York at that time? It was a guy named Johnny Dunn, and he was from Memphis. He used to play for W.C. Handy. He was the best jazz trumpet player in New York City before Louis Armstrong came, right? But Louis Armstrong came to New York and changed American history. So Lil said, you did a good job, Louis. Now come back home, Chicago. Sweet home, Chicago. He came back to Chicago. She had a banner saying world's greatest trumpet player, right? So she upgraded him again. Because she set up these recording sessions known as the Hot 5 and Hot 7. This is the Rosetta Stone of modern American music. A black woman from Memphis did that. She made sure he understood how to copyright his songs. She did the arranging, did some playing on some of these key recordings that changed American music, right? A black woman from Memphis did this. She saw the thing. And also in Chicago, Louis Armstrong used to play at the Vendome Theater, a very popular theater with a very popular orchestra led by Erskine Tate. Erskine Tate was from where? He's from Memphis. He played for W.C. Handy. So everywhere Louis went, he ran into Memphis guys and girls that helped him elevate his game. So when he died back in July 6, 1971, he made sure that Lil rode in the family car. He got married 4 times, right? His first wife was a prostitute named Daisy Parker. When she used to get mad at him, she used to throw bricks at him. So that made Louis Armstrong what? Yeah, like a pimp. It's Memphis. Come on, like a pimp. Hustle and flow. Okay, second wife, Lil Harder Armstrong, she upgraded him. She was the architect of his career. Third wife, Alpha Smith, was a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no, Fourth wife was Lucille. That's the one that he kept, that gave him a home in Queens. That got the Louis Armstrong house, right? But Lil was the one that gave us Louis Armstrong, this black woman from Memphis. So she rode in his family car during the funeral, doing a concert outside Chicago, August 27, 1971, on TV. She was playing St. Louis blues and under Louis Armstrong at the piano on stage. She died. That's several weeks after he passed. So that's what y'all need to know. And I ain't gonna sit here and bore y'all with all this stuff, but it's so much that I know. It's so much that you should know, and it's out there. I want y'all, especially young people, talk to some of the older people in your family. I wish I did talk to my grandfather and my grandmother more about these things they passed on down. But talk to the elders in your family, in your community, and also don't limit yourself. Dream big, do big things, right? So I guess y'all want a Q&A? We're gonna have time, so I talk all the time. So with that said, I hope y'all enjoy yourselves. Give yourself another round of applause. Mouth dry.